Another game with adventures cards in it. On the board, we have Giant, not Giant, Giant, and the event Borrow. However, I noticed there's no plus action, and there's Governor on the board, so it basically means you're gonna play Governor and finish your turn with either a militia or goons. I could see Gear being useful in this game, but we'll see. I go for militia on my first four. I recognize that I could borrow and get governor, but I wanted to get the militia first before I got any governors, so that I have the potential of drawing and then making my opponent discard down. So I went militia silver because I wanted to get to 5 and 6 respectively. My opponent opens 5 with the borrow and has 2 here for a seller. On my turn 3 here, fortunate enough to have 5. I considered borrowing here to get a goons, but my line of thinking was, well, I already have a discard attack. I'll get a goons maybe through remodeling my militia into a goons when I have more governors. I thought getting the governor was more important at that point. So here my opponent makes use of the borrow again to get a silver. I get my militia in play, and then it is at this point I decide to borrow to get a governor. Like, I really wanted to get 5-5 on the shuffle to get double governor at least. And well, borrow makes that happen here, even though I had 5-4 with the ordinary shuffle. So here you see the adverse effect of borrow, having only 4 cards in hand, and not good 4 cards either. This point here, I thought it would be a good time for a seller, because what happens in these governor games is that sometimes the shuffle is weird and you can't find what you need when you need it, even though you've drawn quite a bit with your governors. So the seller, I expect to help with that after drawing some with the governor. Thought it was an appropriate time for the seller. My opponent here puts some silver in my deck and manages to buy another governor. Here I decide to draw with my governor. Just looking, I know the militia is in my remaining card, so I was looking for that. I didn't find it, but I found a governor, so instead I chose to gain a gold, and here I buy the goons. Having a second terminal isn't so bad in a deck that's going to be full of treasure very quickly. My opponent borrows here for a governor, and I am going to play my militia here and get a governor for myself. I think the governor split is 3-3 at this point, I'm not sure. My opponent plays their gear here, which could be useful in this game actually. I didn't know the role it would play. It could be useful. So they get the gear down, but this is after I played militia, so I don't expect too many great things, but they're still able to come out with a governor, which is good. So with seller in hand here, I'm more inclined to draw, and especially knowing that there's goons in my deck left. So here I discard the obvious cards to the seller, and I thought about keeping the 2 silvers, but I opted against it, trying to just go that extra distance to try to find the goons. I didn't want it to be one of the last 2 cards and miss it entirely. And I found all the nice cards in my deck. I was able to remodel a silver here into a governor, and then I'm going to play this goons here and come up with $7 for governor and a second seller. Again, I think the seller will be important to pair up governor with gold and to find my discard attacks after I've drawn a bunch with my governors. So I get the goons down here, and with $7 I will buy a governor. So this will be my 5th governor, I believe, and a seller here. I considered Haven at this point, but I thought the second seller would be far more useful. So this is not a good hand for me here, but my opponent helps me out with that first governor, drawing me a card, which is a seller. And then they play a seller of their own here. So this game is going past very quickly, as most governor games do, and the only adventures card or event that has been used really is borrow. Giant would be way too slow, and well, my opponent's used gear here, but I don't know how useful it was in this game. So my opponent on 8 here and 1 by opts for governor. instead of a province, which I think is the right call. You really don't want to lose the governor split in this kind of game because you basically that's basically click and resign. So here I find no governors, no discard attacks, I just find money, so with nothing else to buy, I opt for a province. So I know that the bottom half of my deck is loaded with good cards. My opponent finally gets a goons here via the borrow route. So here I'm checking to see how soon my opponent can play their goons, because I want to try to get as much things done as possible before I'm forced down to 3-card hands. I have had the luxury of playing with full hands for this whole game. So here I'm going to gain a gold with the governor, and then I will cycle 3 cards down with the seller because I want to get up to the end of the shuffle and I see my remaining governors. So I just mostly gain gold on this turn because, well, I'm prepping for massive governor shenanigans on the next shuffle. So 4 out of 5 governors here were for gold gain, I believe. And here I considered between a third seller and a haven. I thought maybe a third seller was too much. That might be wrong, so I took the haven instead because I had the goons by, so I wanted to at least get a point off of that. Could be relevant. So my opponent here now plays governor and remodels gold into province, getting amongst the points. Following it up with a gear here, but that's the end of their turn. Now I start with 2 governors, so I know there's 3 left in the deck plus our goons, and I have a seller in hand, so again I'm much favored to draw here with this governor, the first governor anyway, and I see my goons here, so again this pushes me to draw some more, which I do here, because I know I can use the seller, cycle away, replace all these coppers with golds and silvers and governors perhaps. I don't need the militia, so I throw that away along with the coppers on the estates, and I turn up with a bunch of money here. After calculating, I realized I had $17 here with 2 buys, so I could get 2 provinces. But because it was 17, I could afford to cycle 1 copper down, and it shows me a governor, which is excellent. Here I'm able to remodel a gold into a province and buy province duchy. I buy the duchy because the end of this game is coming very quickly, as is usual for governor games. So getting the extra 3 points at this point in time is critical, I think. So I play my goons here to, mitigate the drawback of governor giving my opponent cards, and with $13 is a very clear and clean province plus duchy. So there's no more discard attacks left in my deck, so I have to be very careful with how I use my governor, especially for drawing cards. I know there's 2 left in the deck. Here you see the haven. If it was a seller, you see here that I have a lot more options if it was a seller rather than just a haven. So maybe that was a poor buy on my part. My opponent plays 2 governors for draw and then uses seller to discard a bunch of cards. So I know this is going to be a good turn for my opponent. We see some more governor for draw here and then a goons, which was fully expected at this point. I mean, it would be extremely unfortunate if they didn't find their goons after drawing so many cards and using seller. So I discard down to the obvious choice here. 2 governors and a gold. My opponent manages to get double province with the goons by, so that's excellent for them. So I draw up to the end of the shuffle here, and not wanting to trigger this shuffle, I remodel this gold into a province, and I buy a duchy using borrow here. This is probably only the 2nd or 3rd time for the game I've used borrow, but again, last province you have to go for this duchy buy here, even though it gives you 4 cards at the start of your next turn. And I mean, if my opponent has a good turn, it's likely that they will draw me some cards, and if not, Well, then I also probably won't have a good turn, so it balances out. Here, I didn't check the points very clearly, but I had a feeling that I was ahead by enough to be able to take that province. And even if, like, that's just two remodel plays from a governor and the game is over, so you have to go for the province at that point. My opponent draws twice with governor and then plays a gear. I'm like, very happy to see the gear come out and not a goons or a seller. Basically means I have to draw through and find money for the last province. However, my opponent effectively resigns here by buying the last province. So that's it for today, and thanks for watching. Comments, feedback are always welcome.